main plot of The Last of Us is an attempt to save the world from cordyceps infection by using the cells growing in Ellie's brain to replicate her immunity in a lab and create a vaccine. The catch to creating this vaccine is it would kill Ellie. Joel was like, nah, and killed everyone. What a gentleman. Regardless of whether or not Joel's rampage through the Salt Lake Hospital occurred, would a vaccine even be possible? The short answer is no, but why not? If you've watched the show, then you don't need me to tell you a cure isn't possible, considering it's stated in the first 10 minutes of the very first episode. The scientist explains there are no cures or preventatives. Similar in episode 2, the doctor explains there are no medicines to treat cordyceps. In their pre-outbreak times, with more advanced technology than what they possess in post-outbreak, a cure wasn't even possible. First, let's talk about how a vaccine would even be created. We get 2 points of view from the game and the show on how they intend to produce a vaccine. In the game, Marlene explains that the cordyceps inside of Ellie had mutated, and with extracting it, they would be able to reverse engineer a vaccine. In the show, we find that Ellie's mother was bitten just as she gave birth, making the cordyceps inside Ellie think that she is cordyceps and therefore don't infect her. This chemical messenger that was mutated at her birth to trick the cordyceps is what they were going to attempt to recreate in a lab in order to produce a cure. This sounds like a pretty solid plan except for one thing. Fungus is extremely tough and is very difficult to kill off or treat. Fungi can develop a resistance towards antifungal treatments in the same way bacteria can mutate and become resistant to antibacterial medications. In some cases, antifungal treatments can also be harmful to the host. A cure for these cordyceps is simply impossible regardless of what Marlene thinks. And if they were to make a working vaccine, cordyceps are able to adapt, seen in The Last of Us Part 2 with shamblers. Shamblers are a mutation of cordyceps to adapt to the wetter environment, meaning the rules of mutation and adaptation still apply. Similar to when our bodies produce antibodies for colds, yet we still get sick the next year with a cold. We are infected with a different strain, and cordyceps are capable of recreating a similar process. The Fireflies' attempt to create a vaccine is not only impossible, but impractical in the world they live in. The Fireflies are seen as a terrorist organization, not only by the government, but by the people. They have built up a bad reputation through bombings and anti-government propaganda that has led the members of the Fireflies to be some of the most wanted people. Regardless if a miracle vaccine was created, Fedra would refuse to take it and give it to their people throughout the country and feared that it was another attempt to resist their rule. Let alone would the people trust the vaccine at all after all the Fireflies had done. People are scary. After outbreak, many people resorted to violence and theft. Most people tend to just kill on sight, both for protection and for their own personal gain. This is seen in Kansas City, where people hunt out tourists in order to scavenge for clothing or food for themselves. People such as raiders, seen when Bill and Frank were attacked, and slavers, seen in Santa Barbara, would be unwilling to give up their new lifestyle, where they can practically do whatever they want. It's a scary and difficult truth that given the right circumstances, people can become just as monstrous as the infected. And even if somehow Marlene convinces Fedra to take their vaccine and use it, many people live on the outskirts of QZs in their own settlements, some of which have been started by overtaking the government. Just look at how people reacted to a real-life pandemic. Anti-vaxxers claim it's a way for the government to spy on us and inject us with trackers. They lied about side effects of the vaccine, spreading fear into those around them and continuing the cycle of anti-vaxxers. In a world where the government is widely distrusted and seen as overly powerful and corrupt, it is more than likely that people would refuse a vaccine for more than one reason. Infected are still hostile. Injecting a cure into a hostile being that has already been taken over by the cordyceps is not only idiotic, but a death wish. Even if they somehow manage to inject the vaccine into an infected person, would it change those like clickers and bloaters who have been infected for years and have fungus literally growing all over them? The Fireflies never truly explain how they intend on using the vaccine, besides creating it and distributing it to everyone. It would not matter anyway, considering if the only people being vaccinated are the uninfected, the infected still pose a serious threat. Sure, the spread would be minimized, but every last infected would have to be killed in order to stop the cordyceps pandemic. They are killing their only specimen. As far as we know, in the Last of Us universe, Ellie is the only person immune to cordyceps. If the cure did not work, the only known person immune to cordyceps infection would be dead. What then, Marlene?
What then?
As previously stated, Ellie is immune due to her mother being bit just as she was born, meaning the cordyceps inside her believes she is cordyceps. In order to recreate this process, they would somehow have to get an infected to bite another pregnant mother just as she was giving birth in order to have another child immune to the cordyceps. I mean, Marlene gave Ellie up pretty easily, so I'm sure she'd be more than willing to recreate that scenario. So, this miracle vaccine that Marlene goes on about is a bunch of
hippy-dippy baloney.
Joel did what he did in order to save Ellie, his someone worth living and fighting for. The debate on whether or not Joel should have done what he did has been ongoing for years, but the truth is there is no circumstance where Joel would have done anything differently. He said so himself.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
Joel apologized for life. But that's what she wanted. Yes, I know that. It's obvious that even if Ellie was awake to give consent to go through with the surgery, she would agree in a heartbeat. She lost her mother, her best friend, someone she looked to as a brother, and someone who treated her like her own to the infection. She wouldn't care about the what-ifs, but only one. What if it works? Thank you for watching. Endure and survive.